Hello, I'm Andrea Fiano, the editor of Global Finance magazine. David Sanders, who's with us today, has selected for us the safest banks in the world, an award that Global Finance created 31 years ago and based on the ratings of three different agencies. He has done this for the last 4 years. He is a bank analyst with a long experience covering global financial institutions in various capacities, as a buy-side credit analyst as well as in a risk management capacity, and a number of institutions like Merrill Lynch, Societe Generale, and AIG. For these rankings, we look at the 500 largest banks in the world as measured by their assets, the largest 1,000 in the case of the safest by country, and at the ratings assigned to them by Fitch, Moody's, and Standard & Poor. So, David, we are trying to talk about safest banks this year. Is a work in progress. We are about to release the new rankings, but we know this has been a very turbulent years in the economy and on the markets for many reasons, starting with the lingering effect of the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, the big jump in oil and commodity prices, record inflation, and the list can go on. How has all this affected the bank's rating this year? Should we expect big changes from last year's safest banks rankings?
Yes, it's really been a stressful and challenging time for the banking sector in so many jurisdictions, and uh, that's why it's always very interesting to do this exercise and to rank the safest banks globally because of the year-on-year changes, given so many different macro and geopolitical things going on. Absolutely, this year we are going to see a number of ranking changes. There have been lots of movements, whether they're related to various issues of inherent credit quality or sovereign ratings or other factors that have contributed to movements in the ratings. But we are definitely going to have some movement, particularly in our emerging markets rankings, as well as our country rankings, and also with our global top 50 and commercial. For example, Royal Bank of Canada was upgraded by Moody's to a AA1. That's our long-term debt rating. So they have made some incremental strides in their business model, and the agency cites excellent earnings stability and a diversified business mix, which contribute to their upgrade to that entity. Um, More broadly, from a global standpoint, there are different regions that are experiencing some issues: Latin America, Central and Eastern Europe, and some places in Africa, and we will see some shifts there as well.
David, should we expect an increased difference in ratings and therefore rankings between banks in advanced economies and financial institutions in emerging markets?
In general, yes, we do see this year to year. Uh, the larger and higher rated banks in developed economies are generally better equipped to handle various stresses and pressures given fluctuations in their economies and geopolitical events. The banks in emerging markets, developing markets, and also frontier markets have to contend with issues of spillover from the countries that they are either in trading partnership with or general downturns in those economies that directly impacts them. We are seeing uh, issues in a number of areas.
David, let's talk about sovereign ratings. They assess the credit quality of a given country, and it looks like we had both upgrades and downgrades this year. Can you mention a few and tell us what effect the sovereign ratings has on the ratings of the banks operating in those countries?
Absolutely. Sovereign ratings are an important factor in the ratings of the underlying banks in that country. It serves as a rating ceiling in most cases. So when we have shifts to the sovereign, we frequently have very swift follow-on changes in rankings. I'll start with the good news. For example, in Angola, Fitch upgraded the sovereign to B minus, and Moody's also upgraded the sovereign rating to B3 since our last publication, and that benefited Banco Angolano and Banco di Fomento, which ratings upgrades followed that move. In Ireland, Moody's upgraded the sovereign, and that benefited AIB as well as Ulster Bank. In Oman, Standard & Poor's upgraded Oman to a double B minus just in April, and Bank Muscat followed with an upgrade. And interestingly, this is the only bank that Standard & Poor's rates in Oman. So picking up another rating, Bank Muscat definitely benefits from that, and we may see some shifts in the ratings there. Taiwan was upgraded, interestingly, specifically on higher export revenue from electronics. So the recovery from the pandemic and the gradual improvement in some economies has benefited Taiwan and directly the banks. And names there are First Commercial Bank and Cathay United have benefited, and those have risen in our preliminary rankings, specifically with our emerging markets list, as well as providing new names to that list in the form of banks such as Huanan Commercial Bank, Esun, and Changhua.
David, what was the cutoff date for these ratings?
September 1st. So we do have some time for additional shifts, and we will assess every rating on that date to determine the winners, and we will capture all the ratings as of that date for our rankings.
Thank you very much.